Okay, we got a request for some of the multiple choice questions in 0.6. So I figured I would do at least 3. 52 through 54 go all with this function. F of x is 2 cosine of 4x plus pi minus a 1. And we're going to get asked about the domain, the range, and the period. So I think the first thing before we answer any of the questions is to do a slight rewrite of this formula. So it's 2 cosine of, and then factor out the 4 from the 4x plus pi, and that puts it in the form that we are most used to seeing our trigonometric functions. So what number goes here? 4 times something makes pi. Well, that'd be pi over 4, so the 4's would cancel, and then minus 1. Okay, so let's get to 52. We are asked about the domain of f. So this is a cosine function. We know that cosine functions are what we call sinusoidal waves, and there are no asymptotes, breaks, holes, jumps, anything in this function where it's not continuous. So the domain is nothing more than all real numbers, or in interval notation, negative infinity to infinity. And for 52, that is answer choice D. Okay, for 53, we are asked for the range. And this again is a sinusoidal wave, and the untransformed cosine function gets as tall as -1 and as positive 1, and as low as -1. So the untransformed cosine has a range of -1 to 1. This one has, however, been transformed, and there are 2 numbers in this function's rule that we want to pay careful attention to. First up is the -1 at the end of the function. This is a vertical shift down 1 space, down because it's a -1, and that's going to take the whole entire wave and send it down a little bit. So that's obviously going to affect the range. And the other one we want to look at is the number out in front of the cosine. So we look at the absolute value of whatever this number is. That's a 2, and that's the amplitude. If I can spell that, that's the amplitude of the graph. Well, what is amplitude? So if we were to draw a horizontal center line right through the middle of the cosine curve, the amplitude represents the distance from that center line to a maximum, or that center line to a minimum. In the untransformed cosine curve, the amplitude is just 1. But our amplitude here is 2. So this is going to get a little bit taller and a little bit shorter down at the bottom. So I think we have enough information to be able to talk about the the range. So here's what's going on. We know we're going to shift down 1 space. So here's where we're thinking that the cosine function kind of begins. And then we know that the amplitude is 2. So if this is -1, we know we get as high as, +1 now. We've gone up 2 spaces. And we're going to go as low as, -3 then. And so here's what we're sort of thinking about. Without the horizontal shift, this is kind of what our cosine does. So it goes as low as -3, as high as 1. So our range in this case is -3 to +1, and that is answer choice B on 53. Then on 54, we need the blue here. Then on 54, we are asked for the period of this function. For 54, we want to look at this number for the period, that 4 that we factored out of the 4x plus pi. The sines and cosines and the cosecants and the secants all have a period of 2 pi. And what we mean by period is the amount of, space on the x-axis that it takes to complete 1 full cycle of that sinusoidal wave. And in this case, it's 2 pi. It's the same for the sine, cosine, cosecant, and secant. So the way you use this number 4 here is you stick it into a formula, absolute value of 2 pi over b, where b is that number. So in this case, we've got 2 pi over 4, and that reduces then down to a pi over 2. So for this particular graph, we are saying that the period, the amount of space it takes to get through one full cycle, is just pi over 2. So it's actually going to happen from like here to here. So we're going to go, it's going to be real compacted, I guess, along the x-axis. And if we say our period is pi over 2, that is going to translate to answer choice D on 54. So that's everything there, and I hope that it helps out.